And rounding out our presentations, we have Alyssa Blank. She is an award-winning designer with a decade of industry experience. Her current practice centers on the research-forward approach, which opens up conversations between designers and non-designers alike. She has designed a variety of successful projects with clients including Fortune Top 10 companies and worked with organizations that have ranged from a National Endowment for the Arts major grant recipient to seed-funded startups. When she isn't designing, she's populating the Design Calendar Philadelphia Instagram feed with the best socially distant design happenings around the internet. The groundwork for all of these endeavors was laid by attaining a BA in sociology from Boston University with a focus on the construction of community and identity through race, ethnicity, and culture, and a minor in art history, as well as a postgraduate degree in design from Portfolio Center in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hello, thank you guys for joining us tonight. I'm here to discuss the importance of having a dedicated space for design in our city. I think if we want to see appreciation for design to grow, we need to have a centralized location for people to engage with the design year-round. More so, I think that there are about 6 tenets that a space like this should aim to be: accessible, collaborative, engaging, advancing, showcasing, and organizing. Our city has a plethora of museums, and while some intersect with design, none promote design as a primary audience driver. I don't want this idealized space to be limited by the formal understanding of a museum. Instead, I think it could be more valuable to think of it as a hub that bridges the gap between community and design. But before discussing these hypothetical space for Philly, I want to discuss a few organizations that already exist outside of our city. First, the Mad Museum of Art and Design in New York City, then the MODA Museum, the Museum of Design in Atlanta, and then lastly, the Letterform Archive in San Francisco. The Mad Museum in New York is a prolific museum that defines its mission in terms of ownership, stating that its primary objective is to collect, display, and interpret. They are able to put on robust, large-scale exhibits that showcase the culturally impactful nature of design. Having such a vast collection gives them the advantage to being able to define design on their own terms, but this is not the only institution in New York City for design. There are many other smaller resources like the Lou Ballin Study Center that serve more niche audiences, giving New York a well-rounded offering of design programming at all times. The mission of the MODA in Atlanta instead revolves around the simple idea of advancing the appreciation of design. It does not own a collection, which means that they consistently facilitate and collaborate outside of the institution itself to bring exhibits through its doors. It's actually a much smaller institution than the MAD, sitting on a single ground floor of an office building, but it does sit directly across the street from the High Museum, which is Atlanta's primary arts museum. So, despite its size, its geographic positioning has given the MODA a prominent home within the Midtown Arts Corridor for its programming to be seen. Lastly, the Letterform Archive is another small but mighty institution that has started with a private collection centered on lettering and type-based works. Their niche library is available for private review, but their mission draws more interactive crowds through various events and typographic curriculum through their partnership with New York's Cooper Union School of Type. Most recently, they've been converting their entire library to an online digital archive, making it accessible anytime, anywhere, and to anyone who's interested in researching typographic process and form. This free resource provides a huge value without a dedicated space. In addition to the missions, these institutions showcase some key takeaways I want to point out and traits that I think a hub for Philadelphia should strive for. Those are accessibility, collaboration, and engagement. Next question is, how would Philly get closer to a dedicated space for design year-round? While occupying prime real estate would be great, I've outlined a phased approach that alleviates the initial need for a permanent physical space. And it keeps those 3 traits in mind: accessibility, collaboration, and engagement. The first phase would be partnering with reciprocal organizations around the city to highlight the existing efforts in a variety of neighborhoods and within local communities. This collaboration could manifest as a traveling pop-up exhibit that would be a great way to unify and draw attention to all the design organizations our city houses. Geography is a huge component to accessibility, so leveraging the spaces of partner organizations would offset the barrier that geography can sometimes create. Unifying our city by bringing design to different spaces could help reduce those silos. The second phase would be expanding the pop-up to a more mobile solution, bridging the gap between community and design by bringing design to schools, corporate complexes, and more diverse locations to help identify who is hungry for more design programming. All of this would lead towards the potential to find a more permanent home to establish this. Advancing and advocating for design in this broad approach could also help connect the various spaces and pique more community interest. So again, the next question, what does this mean for Philadelphia? In addition to those first three goals of accessibility, collaboration, and engagement, the next goals would be to break away from the traditional museum and instead have the simplified mission to advance, showcase, and organize. Advancing would mean to help our greater city become more familiar with design while also providing the existing community of designers with another platform for representation to cultivate connection. This hub would increase familiarity by showcasing design from within our city and from around the country. All of this would help organize a more universal strategy for programming year-round. So to reiterate, the overall goals would be to make design accessible to the most people, support existing organizations in their respective missions, and to maximize visibility and understanding of design within Philadelphia. As a designer in Philadelphia myself, our design seems siloed to me, and I'd love to see our community fortified and united beyond the university or office setting. I'm originally from Philadelphia, and after spending time in New York and Atlanta, I've been back for a few years now, and I've spent, as Clarissa mentioned, the last year populating design events from our city to the design calendar as a curator for Philadelphia. And as someone actively looking for programming to attend, I often find great events after the fact. So I feel like this would having a dedicated hub would help resolve that. So that's it. And thank you guys for joining us tonight.